You know, the subject of animal slaughter, butchering animals, torturing animals, and pornography, prostitution, sexual, indecent, immodest media and culture. But focusing on this animal torture, animal cruelty thing, there are atheists who took up vegetarian/vegan diets, and there's some people who do it for reasons of health reasons, but like physical health. But some people also do it for mental health reasons. For instance, Pat Condell is an atheist, supposedly. I'd like to think that he was influenced with good Judeo-Christian influence, which could have, shaped him to be a certain good quality or whatever. But point is, this is a person who's saying he's an atheist, okay? And he doesn't eat animals, and he says in his biographical account that it's because he saw what animals go through. He saw an animal being butchered in front of him, and he saw, I assume, how brutal and how inhumane that is, and how just hypocritical it is to say that it's okay to do this to an animal, but it's not okay to do it to a human being. And then he says he took up eating tofu. And he didn't get that from someone having to tell him, don't eat an animal, right? He knew, he had enough sense in him. And I would assume that even Jews and Christians, if they have enough sense in them, they, even before being a religious person, just common sense as a child, you were born and then you see an animal and you see what's done to an animal, and you live around animals, it's wrong and it's horrifying, and it's, why do you do this? How can you do this to an animal? But then say that it's okay, but it's not okay when we do it to each other. It betrays the psyche. It betrays the sentiment. It's like insincerity. It's a sham. It's a facade. You have to be true, or you have to be, you have to say something's bad or something's good. You have to be a certain way, or you have to be another way. You can't just say, oh, I'm also good and bad. You can't just be a hypocrite. You have to be true. Either it's bad or it's not. And so you don't need to be indoctrinated with anything to just simply know that it's bad and that it's inhumane, it's cruel. It's almost like, it says we're made in God's image. So we already have these faculties, we already have these sentiments. We have the basic foundation to know better what's wrong or right, to choose what's good or bad. Trials and tribulation, hardships, poverty, they may be something to unfortunate, but they don't, wealth or poverty, abuse, or, those things don't force us to be good or bad. We aren't forced to corrupt ourselves with poverty or wealth, in good or bad times. They just show you what the person's true color is, right? It just brings it out of them. So even with, and then people want to say, with there's bias on both sides, right? There's atheist bias, and then there's theist bias. But the theist bias is something like, oh, God didn't say I can't do it. People will say, oh, but what about the animal sacrifices and all that? Well, that was afterward. It didn't start off that way. The same way Jesus says that At first there was no divorce. That's not how things are supposed to be like. But God knew the callousness of people's hearts. So it's not really so much that God told you to do it, or God told you not to do something. It's that he already knew that you were just like a child, and you won't do it even if you were told to, or you wouldn't understand it. So if you did do it, it wouldn't be out of love. It wouldn't be out of understanding. Like, what if I told you that God eventually wanted you to not eat animals? And that God never told you to eat animals in the first place. In the beginning of the Bible, the very beginning of the Bible, in Genesis with Adam and Eve, he created everything. There was no sin, there was no problems yet, right? He gave people all that they needed to know. The rules or whatever, at least in this instance. When man and woman were created and animals were there and the world was created, he said to the animals and to the man what their food was, what to eat. And he said to the animals and to the man, your food to eat is the green things that grow. He didn't say to eat the animals. He didn't say to kill the animals. God didn't say in this time where he describes what your diet is, what food is, what you should eat, what you can eat. He says the greens, the vegetation. And then, of course, eat from the trees, that's fruit or whatever. He didn't say eat animals. He didn't say kill animals. And I could say that, what if Eve never ate from that apple? What if Cain never killed his brother? What if the world was never wicked so that there was no flood and that Noah didn't have to build a boat? What if Ham never, disrespectfully stared at his dad's nakedness? What if Jesus Christ didn't have to be crucified? It's just that it happened. But that doesn't mean it was supposed to happen necessarily. It doesn't mean that has to happen. Like, why couldn't you just be good in the first place? Why couldn't you just not do that thing in the first place? So why would God tell you to not kill an animal, or when you were already doing it without his permission, without him saying so? These people, God didn't say to eat animals. He didn't say to kill animals. He said to eat vegetation, eat from the trees. And then time goes by, these people, these generations, they grow up, decide to kill animals, torture them, eat them, right? God didn't say to do that. But meanwhile, they're so accustomed to it, they're so used to it, that if you were to tell them don't do it and that is bad, they wouldn't understand what you're talking about. They're so desensitized. They're so... and they can't even treat other human beings well. They kill other human beings. They steal, they rape, they scheme. And then, so they have to be annihilated. Because they're that strong, they're that stubborn. Their hearts are made of stone. So how can he tell you at that point, where you can't even treat human beings well, and you think human beings are better than animals, not to kill animals, not to torture animals? You would do it regardless. Or you wouldn't understand why you're doing it, and then it will defeat the purpose. You would be obeying out of mere fear or obedience, because God's bigger than you, stronger than you. He wants you to have a loving heart. He wants you, what does Jesus say? What does God say? He says they want you to have a love in your heart, not just robotic obedience. If they wanted that, they would just build a robot. But they want someone who understands, who loves, who treats others well, who respects themselves. Kindness, these kinds of things. This is a spirit. It's more than mere physical action, Mere physical action and computation, that's just a dead, robotic, inanimate object. So then he had to, what if I suggested that God had to kind of slowly work. He had to slowly, heal you. He had to slowly, even in surgery or therapy, a lot of times they can't do everything at once immediately. You can't just fix someone right on the spot, because the damage, the trauma, and the damage that it would cause to force someone. You can't force someone to understand something. You can't force someone to love or trust. It takes time. It's a slow healing process, especially depending on how much the damage is, how severe it is. And there's this film called Invincible, I think. It's a film about Samson, before the Nazis, before Hitler, but this was during the time of like subjugation. There's a Jew named Samson, and his rabbi is telling him a story about there's this guy who, his heart was so cold, that and then God couldn't heal him immediately. He had to be, he was saying, God was like, in a way, holding this person in his hand, like metaphorically speaking, and had to slowly rub to thaw this person's heart. Like, instead of like just immediately just crushing this ice heart, it's like saying it'll destroy his heart. The same way, God had to instill this love into you, and first tell you how to treat other human beings, and then you go, oh, okay, I kind of get it. I understand the golden rule. So then you could be ready to understand, oh my God, I was being cruel to animals. I shouldn't be torturing and killing them or eating their flesh. So like that animal sacrifice thing was temporary. It was just for the time being, and it wasn't even him necessarily who told you to do that in the first place. It was that, so what if I suggested that you were already killing animals, you didn't care about animals, and he knew that you were going to do it anyways, but he had to teach you a lesson somehow. He had to slowly progress you, bring you into the knowledge and into the heart of someone who is about love and equality and the golden rule, It's a slow process, and we have been, it's been a long time since then. We are ready, and technically speaking, if there was no meat in the supermarket aisles, we would get along, we would live on, we would, we would live to see another day. But even if we didn't, would you start what if we had no more meat in the world? They all went extinct. Would you start eating people? No, right? I mean, unless you say you will, and then you're just really crazy. But, if you cannot eat people, why can't you not eat animals? Pizza's delicious. It's not even about the delicious part, right? It's just the fact. But like, as a consolation, yes, pizza's delicious, curry's delicious. We have all this food, fried rice, like in the modern world you can live on. But at a certain point, even if you didn't have those things, you would have to realize you're in a situation where you're all in the same boat, and you have limited resources, and you're going to die anyway. So why start killing people? Why start killing animals? Start torturing them? Why don't you just go out together? Go out, at the same time. Share food, cut it down the middle, and then you go out at the same time. Why is it like me against you? Why is it just all your property? It's just all about you. You have to feed yourself, but then it's like you don't care about other people. That's like the whole antithesis of family. That's the whole antithesis of like what God is trying to teach people, what society is supposed to be, what a family is supposed to be. Like, what if your family is a microcosm of the world, and then you decide that you want to keep all the food for yourself and let your brothers die, your mom die, even though they're not bad people, they're not harmful, Or you're going to start killing your dog too. This is the whole process. Like, from the beginning of time, God never said to kill the animal, to butcher the animal, to eat the animal. He said to eat the vegetation, eat from the trees. That's it. He said, this is what your food is. This is what your diet is. This is what food is, period. I never said animals are food. I never said you could eat animals. I never said you could kill them, He had all that time in the beginning of the story of Genesis to say, oh, you could eat animals, by the way. Yeah, they don't matter. You could torture them. You could slaughter them. He didn't say that, though. And the bigger picture isn't necessarily to say that you as an individual, you one person, should stop eating meat, or stop watching porn or whatever. It's about the whole family. It's about society. It's about lifestyle. Like, if it's just one person, then what does that do for you? Like, that doesn't solve the problem of that all these animals are being tortured or whatever. It doesn't stop the problem that everyone's living as polygamists or in orgies and like destroying families, destroying your psychology or your psychological state or your emotional state, right? If you yourself stop watching porn, I mean, and you like, you're not even in porn, you're not even committing prostitution or whatever. You're not killing animals. You know, you're eating animals that have already been killed, but we don't want you to kill. We don't want you to torture animals from now on. We don't want you to continue this process. You know, you can't bring a dead animal back to life. You can't change this slab of meat into a living thing anymore, right? The damage has been done. It's been tortured. The same thing with this film. The thing has been done already. Now it's just like a video. But like, the purpose is to, on like a world level, ban this act and denounce it, which is, you know, torturing animals, slaughtering them, and the sexual indecency, sexual immodesty, this whoredom, this whoremongering, this pornography, this orgy, this polygamy, this sexual just immorality, destroying families, destroying neighborhoods, destroying society, destroying mainstream media, destroying your psychology, destroying your sentiments. You know, if it's just one person, that's just pointless. That defeats the point. That's not the point of the thing. So for instance, if you were in a homeless shelter and you had to eat food and they just had this food that happened to be meat, well, you're gonna eat what's there, right? It's already dead. It's already, you can't do anything about it. Like, they're not killing the animal right then and there. But if they were, then, you know, let's say that, then you wouldn't eat the food, and you would say, don't do that. Like, I'm not gonna eat it. So the whole point is about the pain that you cause, the pain that you will be causing, and to stop it, to stop this torturing, to stop, just ban it on a worldwide level, as a societal level, as something that you denounce, something that you don't say is okay, that you don't accept, that you don't tolerate. You know, it's not about trying to revive a dead piece of meat where the damage is already done, it's already been tortured, it's already been traumatized, right? You can't do anything about a slab of meat that's already just dead. Like, if you eat that, what difference does it make? Like, what if you hurt yourself in an accident and then, like, the piece of your flesh came off, right? And you eat that piece of flesh. What does that do? It's like, are you torturing yourself? Are you torturing someone else? I mean, it might be weird, but, you know, the damage is done to that piece of meat. Unless you want to sew it back together, that's not the point. The point is, don't hurt people. It's the idea of the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. This is society. This is family. This is a relationship. This is the world.